I change your bum life. You fight me, it's a celebration.
I will beat you.
When you sign to fight me, it's a celebration. You ring back home, you ring your wife. Baby, we done it. We're rich, baby. Conor McGregor made us rich. Break out the red team.
The best boxing you see, baby.
Are you ready? That goes in the files. Are you ready? Let's get it all.
Yo. Welcome back to the MMA Short Show. As always, your boy, Steven Moustaris. And guys, you know, I just kind of want to do a little something today. And, you know, I've been watching all week the lead up to the whole Luke Rockhold, versus Mike Perry bare knuckle boxing fight. And then, of course, you know, you got, I think on the same card, you got Eddie Alvarez, versus Chad Mendes. And, you know, it's just a tough sport, man. You know, it's one of my favorite sports ever, MMA, clearly. I know bare knuckle and all that, technically not. But, you know, when it comes to MMA, you know, it's easily my favorite sport. And, you know, although my first love was like basketball and football and baseball and all those sports, it's like, it's just, when it comes to that professional level, man, it's just so hard for MMA guys to stay on top as long as we got the guys like the NBA. And, you know, there's arguments there in the NFL. It's pretty tough to, you know, like what the average running back's career is like, 2 years or something like that, if that. And then I think the average career at all in the NFL is 5 years or something. So you can make the argument there, but like more so with like baseball and basketball and stuff. Like once these guys start getting old and everything, like, you know, it's not that big of a deal to see like a Stephon Marbury or, you know, somebody go like, I think like Jimmer Fredette, I think just dropped like 80 or something out there in China or something. So like when you see these good players go over to China, you know, it's not the biggest deal in the world. It's not like you get too sad. It's like, okay, yeah, it's a little sad they're not still, you know, capable of playing on, you know, the New York Knicks, Boston Celtics, LA Lakers, you know, some NBA team. But, you know, for the most part, those guys can still go make some good money. We just saw it with Dwight Howard. The guys can go make some good money over in the NBA. Same with baseball. You can go over to China and everything, you know, you're going to make some good money. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to basketball, baseball and stuff in your post career. But when it comes to MMA, man, it's so hard to like watch sometimes. Cause like, you know, you can even say stuff like Chuck Liddell back in the day when we were watching him like 10 years ago or whatever, when he was at the end of his career, you know, getting knocked out by Rich Franklin and the way you got like 4 knockouts in a row. And then, you know, we sadly had to watch him come back and, you know, fight Tito Ortiz, even though he should have never had to in that awful celebrity boxing match. And it's like, this is where it gets really hard as a fan to watch this. And, you know, I'm not hating whatsoever. Like, I want these guys to go get their money. You know, they're great at fighting, and that's all they've known their entire life. So you can't blame them for, like, you know, leaving the UFC and going, or leaving Bellator, or leaving any of these, you know, bigger markets and, you know, going to the bare knuckles or, you know, going to the celebrity boxing realm, the, you know, boxing YouTubers like we're about to see with Nate Diaz and, you know, like we've seen with Tyron Woodley, Ben Askren. You know, we're starting to see these, and it's just getting pretty depressing for me because it's like, this is probably the most unforgiving sport out there. I don't know about you guys, but I would like to say MMA. And if it's not the number one, it's arguably, you know, number one. Where it's like as soon as you start losing it just a tad, like, dude, you could be the literally the world champion of the UFC, and then within 4 fights, you lose 4 in a row, and you're out of the UFC. Like, look at Tyron Woodley. Like, no offense to him, like Chuck Liddell, Rich Franklin, like these type of guys that like, you know, were the shit for a while. And then as soon as it starts going downhill, it's downhill. Like, you know, not even be funny, I'm Ohio guy, but like Cody Garbrandt, that's another perfect example. But, you know, and then you start seeing these guys like, you know, try to like go over to Bellator. You see them try to go to like One FC and stuff, which, you know, shouts out to these promotions. They're doing a great job at not signing these guys anymore if they're like, you know, they're long in the tooth. You know, they've been in the career for so long. It's like, you guys are getting punch drunk, you know, like luckily, you know, Scott Coker over at Bellator and these guys over at One FC. And like I just said, like at PFL, all these, like they're doing a great job in not hiring these guys anymore, which we're happy because they're going over there. Like, you know, it's like guys like Shane Burgos, who we just saw fight in PFL. Like, yeah, I know he lost. It's like, you know, it's still something like he's still in his prime of his career. Like, that's why it's weird too with like Mike Perry and certain guys. Like it's kind of like situational because Mike Perry might be built better for, you know, a bare knuckle boxing, you know, and compared to MMA. But like, especially with this Luke Rockhold fight, like for this example is like perfect. Like if Luke Rockhold and Mike Perry fought in the UFC, it wouldn't even be close because Luke Rockhold, although he didn't pan out, like his career didn't probably pan out to the level that everybody thought it would be. You know, he was one of those guys that everybody in the gym, like DC, Cain Velasquez, Habib, like all them guys over there at American Kickboxing Academy, like they're the type that would be yelling like, oh, dude, Luke Rockhold's like the best in the gym. Like he's the best trainer. He's everything. You know, he should have been, you know, probably had a little better career. Still had an amazing career, but, you know, just didn't pan out the way it probably would have. And it would be a close fight with Luke versus Mike Perry. But when it comes to bare knuckle, like I got Mike Perry as, you know, the winner. But it's just starting to get sad, man, that we get to like we have to watch our guys do this. Like there isn't like I said with the NBA, there isn't that China version where it's like, okay, yeah, it's still not the highest level, whatever, but you can still go over there, look great, score 80 points, 70 points against these bums, and, you know, freaking make all that money in the world because they can pay you. But when we got these bare knuckle guys, like hopefully they're getting paid well. I know they can get sponsors and stuff, which the sponsorship money's huge, but it's just like, man, I can't be watching like our Chuck Liddells and Tito Ortizes and, you know, luckily, like, knock on wood, Rampage and those guys haven't done it yet. But, you know, we are starting to see it with Nate Diaz. We're starting to see it with Tyron Woodley. We saw it with Anderson Silva. I mean, we saw it with Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz, them fighting each other. Like, you know, we're starting to see it left and right where these guys are, you know, starting to, you know, trying to make their career a little longer. They know they can't really compete at the top level anymore in the UFC, but it's like, then they go into these fight cards and it's just getting tough for me to watch, man. If I'm being honest, it's really sad because it's like, you know, that these guys had all the talent in the world. Like to watch an Anderson Silva get knocked down by Jake Paul, and like, no offense to Jake Paul, good, whatever. He's a decent boxer for sure. Definitely taking it serious. But like, if I watch Nate Diaz lose to Jake Paul, it's like, this is the stuff I don't need to see. Like, these are my guys that I'm okay with, you know, my memories being the last thing I watched of him was, you know, whatever Nate Diaz getting a win against Tony Ferguson, you know, or, you know, I'd rather see that. Or if they do get knocked out, like the Frankie Edgars and stuff in the world, like I'd rather see that, you know, at least I knew you got knocked out against a high level guy like Chris Gutierrez or something like that. Somebody in the UFC where it's like, okay, that kid's an up and comer killer. Like, yeah, he's going to be taking everybody out. So I don't know. It's just a very unforgiving sport. And for us fans, it's probably tough for us to watch. And, you know, hopefully I'm not being a bitch here or nothing, but it is like, I always want my guys to go out there and get their extra money and get that bag and do everything that makes them happy. But once they get a little too like out of their prime, and then we get like a shell of themselves, and then we got to watch all these people that have never watched them before go, he lost to a YouTuber, or he lost to this guy, and it's just tough, man, because it's like, if you guys had any idea what this guy was as a killer back in his prime, like, I don't know, it's just really tough, and it's just another reminder that this sport is a bitch when it comes to, you know, when it comes to the end, like when it comes to the truth and the reality of this, that's when it's a bitch. There's no faking it like the NBA. Like, no offense to like LeBron right now, but, and you guys can kill me right now for saying this about LeBron because I know he's the beloved guy. But if you guys been watching this playoffs, like I love the NBA, but I just don't talk about it as much. There's so many people out there talking about the NBA, but like this year, like LeBron's not looking too well, and he can have a nice little, you know, like especially in the playoffs, I should say, kind of looks like he's like kind of just holding, like kind of half-assing it, like, hey, I can't do this 7 games in a row anymore. I can only do this, you know, the last 2 games. And it's like, it's easier for him to kind of, even though he's still at a high level, but it is easier for him to get by off of, you know, just kind of half-assing a game or two. Because it's like, oh, I got AD, I got all these other players that can help me out. But in MMA, man, it's like you only have yourself. Like, don't get me wrong, you got your training partners, you got your coaches, you got your camps, you got your managers, you got everything in the world that help you to get to the point where you are. You cannot get there by yourself. But when it comes to the in-octagon performance or in-ring performance or whatever it may be that you guys are, you know, on mat, whatever it may be, you know, it comes down to you and you only. Like, yeah, you can have your, you know, your coaches and stuff yelling at you to tell you what to do, but like, let's be real. How many times do we see that in MMA where these guys get a little too gassed, or, you know, they're just like so caught up in their own head, or, you know, they get caught into the barn burners and stuff, and they just stop listening to their coaches. So, you know, I am rooting for these guys. I'll never be the one to sit here and be like, oh no, they shouldn't be doing it, but because who am I to tell them? But it is very hard to watch, and I don't know if you guys have the same problem, because yeah, I'll probably watch it tonight. I'll probably watch Luke Rockhold, you know, versus Mike Perry fight. I'll probably watch the Eddie Alvarez versus Chad Mendes fight. But, you know, when it comes to like the Nate Diaz, Jake Paul, it's like, man, if we saw Nate Diaz get knocked out by Jake Paul, it's like, oh my God, did we have to see that? Did I have to see Anderson Silva get dropped by Jake Paul? Even though he kind of looked good the entire time, he got dropped in that last round. Like, do I need to see that out of my like almost 50-year-old Anderson Silva? Like, no, I don't. Do I need to see Tito Ortiz, who can't punch anybody for the love of his life, knock out a Chuck Liddell just because he's really old and he can't work anymore? Like, no, I don't. So, but no hate whatsoever. And I know this actually works a lot for the females because it helps them, you know, kind of get their brand out there more. They're not stuck under the UFC banner. Like, you know, they get to go out there and look sexy and do all these things that they like to do, and, you know, push their OnlyFans and stuff, which works for them. But when it comes to our male athletes and everything, and, you know, or the girls that don't do those things, it's like, it's just tough to watch, man. It really is just tough to watch. So, as always, your boy, Steven Moustaris, the MMA Short Show. Thank you guys for commenting, watching, subscribing, whatever you guys do. I really fucking appreciate it. So, as always, your boy, Steve Moustaris. Have a good weekend, boys.